Hey everybody, it's Mike from Orderflows and welcome to today's video. Today is Friday, January 6, 2023. It was the non-farm payrolls, and once that number came out, the market went berserko, and it'll be interesting. We'll see, the market is up about 2% today. Next week we got CPI, and we'll see if CPI can give it a further boost up. Now again, I'm not an economist. I don't try to be an economist. I don't try to dissect what the numbers mean. Personally, I think the economy is not as good as the numbers are saying. So, that being said, let's take a look at today's market. Now, before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're trying to get a video out every single day. And, keep those comments coming if there's something you want to see a video on. So, coming into the morning session today, we had, again, a very tight range, as to be expected. It's the non-farm payrolls release that came out this morning. And, we had a 49 high, and during the London session, we kept making these new lows. Initially our low was 31.5. We got down to 29.5, down to 24. Was that 24 even? And then just before the number came out, we got as low as 18 3/4, or was it 19? Right there, 19. So, basically 49 down to 19, a 30-point range, very quiet, but you expect that coming into the day's economic release. Now, it was interesting to note that the market was selling off pretty steadily coming into the number. Now, there are studies that have been done. I remember this from, back in the 90s when I was, first getting started in trading. The historical back test had shown that, I think it was like close to 70%. It was like around 65, 68% of non-farm payroll days close up. Now today was, obviously a big up day. This is what the market did. It closed, it was almost 2% higher. A lot of times it will sort of close, maybe a third of a percent higher or something like that. But today was a nice, big, strong, trending day. Once the cash opened and we came back and sort of kissed the opening price, and then we took off. But I'm going to take a look at some of this interesting order flow and sort of just go through it. And, maybe you could get some little bits of information that you could use in your own trading. So let's take a look at the normal footprint chart. So this is your footprint chart. Now, any realistic day trader is not going to be trading coming into the number or immediately afterwards, at least 5, 10, 15 minutes. Now, non-farm payrolls is a day I actually don't get involved in the market. I've traded through enough non-farm payroll days to know that I don't have good results on these days. It's a day I just like to sit back and watch and sort of take a look at the order flow, see interesting things. It's a day where there's a lot of excitement and the market's moving quickly and it's moving fast. And, sometimes I get over my skis out and, just end up doing stupid things. Don't do stupid things when you're trading, I guess, is the topic for today. But when the number came out, right, you see it just shot right up. Now, I believe, was it last month's non-farm payroll or last month's CPI when it came out, you just saw a void in liquidity. There was nothing on the bid or the offer. Here, at least, the number came out, everyone just lifted the offer. Someone just came immediately, lifted everything up. We had basically a 50-point bar. This is a 1-minute chart, when the number came out. Now, once the number came out, obviously we spiked up. Again, we were trading, right near the low. We had just made the low of the day about 7 minutes earlier. And again, if this number came out the other way, who knows? We would probably be trading in the 3600s right now, or maybe even lower. But the market was encouraged by it. Market spiked up here. Let's take a look how up here at our high. Again, decent volume, 16,000 contracts. Then we sort of closed inside and then went inside. Okay, fine. This is why I tend to stay away from non-farm payroll days, because what you have is exactly this. You get the big bar up, then you just go inside for the next 20, 30 minutes until the cash opens, right? Then the market is now starting to find which way it really wants to move, because that's where the volume is coming in. Now, it's not to say you can't trade this junk here. You can. Volumes are decent, but it's moving pretty quick. And you could get yourself chopped up and stopped out pretty easily. So let's take a look at how the market was once the cash session opened. Okay, so cash opened. What happens? You get this little move back up towards the high. At this point, cash opens, we're trading around, 38, 60, 62 roughly. Pulls back a little bit before it shoots up. Now, what was interesting on this move up is it's going up. Okay, point of control is going higher. You're seeing some buying imbalances in this bar, but look at the delta: 900, 850, 500, 500. And then it turns negative here. It turns to minus 700, minus 1400. It's just, think about it, right? You got to put it in context. It's not just about reading what's the delta doing. Okay, well, see, the delta is 979, 850, 593, 527. You got to be saying, okay, what's delta doing as we're trading back up towards the high? If we're going to look to possibly take out this high, is delta getting stronger or is it average? I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily get stronger to take out the high, but is it decent or not? And, honestly, even though it's decreasing, 979, 850, 500, 500. It's not like 979, 850, and then 100, and then 20. 593 is still decent. 527 is still decent. Okay, maybe it can possibly make a run at the high. That doesn't mean, I got to get long. No, okay, you just sit back and watch what the market is doing. But then the selling comes in. Right, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 7 or 8 selling imbalances in this bar here. I see a strong negative delta, minus 700. Okay, well, maybe we're not going to take out that high, but who knows? It could reverse and come back up. But then you see another bar. It's got twice as much negative delta, and again, 1, 2, 3, maybe about 8 selling imbalances. So okay, I sort of kiss that idea goodbye for now that we're going to take out this high. But more importantly, okay, if we're not going to take out that high, what are we going to do? Are we going to go sideways or are we going to sell off? So it's kind of weak, I say weak, but it's not as strong going up into the high, but the selling off is obviously quite strong, right? This is your biggest delta one way or the other, positive or negative, since the cash opened here. This was minus 900, this is minus 1400. You did have a plus 900 here, but it's your strongest one. So right at this point, you got all these selling imbalances, all these selling imbalances. You didn't make that run and take out the high. You got within about 1.5 points of that high, and you're starting to sell off. The way you should be looking at this is, this market should go lower, and it does, right? It goes basically from the 57 area down to the 47 area in just over a minute, right? That's a 10-point move in a minute. Maybe I'm old and I remember when S&Ps were trading below 1,000 and, 10-point move, that was like your whole day's range. But, so that's why nowadays it's much more interesting market to trade. And boom, quick 10-point drop, right? And again, big, strong negative delta here, right? Minus 700, minus 1400, minus 1469. But the trade to take immediately, the quick trade right here, quick 10 points. Okay, and then it dropped further, actually. I mean, it did go sideways, and then it pulls back towards that opening price, 38.33. Now, me personally, I like to use the opening price as essentially the closing price of the previous day. Usually it's right around the same price, but it's not the official closing price because obviously it's the reopen. Generally, there's not a lot that happens. Sometimes there is something, but I treat the opening price essentially the same as closing price. And when I see the market sort of rotate around there, sort of come back and stop, it's telling me once I see it sort of stop, and trade back and forth, it's going 1 bar, 2 bars, then okay, maybe we're just going to hang around here for a while. Again, it's a non-farm payroll day. I don't expect the market to be unchanged for very long, right? I either expect it to be a nice up day or a nice down day. I don't expect it to be basically hanging around unchanged. There's just too much volatility in the market, and it just sort of hangs around for 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4, 5, 6. Now it starts to move away. Okay, as it starts moving away, you've seen this bar with a bunch of imbalances. It's sort of working its way up, pulls back a little bit, but this is where it got really interesting in my opinion here. This bar right here, this big green, I want to say big green candle, the big one was here, but this nice green candle with the big negative delta, minus 693. And why is it such a big negative delta? Excuse me. Because at 43.5, there was a big bid that came in there at 43 and a half, for, you can see what was left, what traded there, 748 contracts. So what had happened is the market had rallied up from 33 all the way up to about, almost 50. Oh, it did hit 50. Then it pulls back and is going sideways. Then now the big buyer stepped in, okay, to one, support the market, and two, sort of trigger off this buying that took place. So what happened, right? We dropped from 50 down to 40, sort of working our way back up. Someone comes in, what are they? 3.5 bid on 700. Boom, right here. I don't say that spooked the market, but all those guys that look at the order book, look at a depth map, a heat map, all of a sudden they see that and they're thinking, shit, and they start buying it. Right? That's why you see, look at this big aggressive buying here, basically all the way up to 47 and a half. So from 3.25 up to 7.5. Just someone just lifting the offers, whatever's there. They're just buying everything. So basically, I don't know if this, what was here kind of spilled over in here, because remember, it traded at 3.5, and then the bar traded a little bit down because it closed below this level. But this was your first sign that there's some supportive buying coming into the market. Now, what's interesting is, you hear people talk about, market moving on supply and demand, and when there's more buying than selling, the market will move up. It's actually when there's more demand, in the market, in the sense of supply coming in and being sold, right? When people are coming in and demanding, I want to buy more, I want to buy more, and you're seeing this big volume come in, 750, that basically that's your sign, right? I talked about looking at a delta footprint yesterday. If you're looking at a delta footprint, this delta here is like 709 contracts, right? Which is huge at a price level on a minute chart in the minis. Okay, actually it'd be huge in most markets other than the interest rates, but that's a big volume there. Okay, then the market, boom, another buyer just came in and just started lifting every single offer, sweeping through the order book. There is some counter trades in here, but I could tell by the zeros in here, there wasn't much counter trade. And next thing you know, we're trading 47.5, 48s, and 49s, and this bar trades all the way up. It does go all the way up to 7.75 before closing down in here. This bar was a big bar as well, 7.75 down to what was that, 2.5, 42.5 up to 57.75. So again, nice buying, but the sign was in this volume right here, this 748, this big imbalance, this big negative delta, right? What you have is, look at the negative delta, 693. It's closing within 95 percentile of its min delta, and it's a green candle. So I know that there was some supportive buying coming in there. Really, all you're looking for is the follow through, and you get it right in this bar. And then the market went up, and then it was pretty much off to the races pretty much the rest of the day. When we did get some pullbacks, there did look like some potential short opportunities, right? We did pull back here, but when we were making these highs up in here, this is how you could tell when a market is flow driven as opposed to any other market condition. And I like the way that what I describe a flow driven market as is a market that basically disregard whatever technical indicators you're using, because it's just driven by the flow. Now I know I saw some people saying, well, this buying is people covering their shorts from before. Yeah, there's probably some of that taking place. I mean, obviously yesterday, where we were trading, we spent most of, after the cash, that's today's cash yesterday, right? It was right around here. We're trading basically between 50 and 25 most of yesterday, right? And we sort of failed to come back down towards that yesterday's, the 25-ish area. I don't know. People say, oh, there's people covering their shorts from yesterday. Yeah, probably. But really what you're looking for, really what you like to see is, is it potentially new longs coming into the market? It's one thing to be covering your shorts, but if you're starting to see potentially new longs, then that's going to give you a good idea of what type of market you're in. And if it's new longs, then that's going to be a flow-driven market. And if it's a flow-driven market, take your technical indicators, throw them in the garbage, right? Because how can I tell is when I start seeing strong sell-offs like this, which should be I say strong sell-offs, but when I'm looking at, the deltas up here near the high, quite strong negative, and it just reverses right back on you pretty quick. What the selling is taking place in here is probably people covering their longs that got, the day traders that got long earlier, they're selling out. Then the buying comes back in strong, and as you're taking out these highs, 1600 positive delta, 1300 positive delta. I'm always watching the deltas when you're sort of going back up into these new highs, quite strongly, 1100, right? And you're seeing, the negative deltas, 400, 300, and it's not really moving off from the highs, right? I always watch the strength of the pullbacks off of a high, especially if I see some strong selling like this. This is strong selling here. We're closing near our min delta on 1, 2, 3 bars, and there's absolutely no follow through, right? It just goes inside of you on this third bar, on this fourth bar here, right? And I know that once I get potentially strong selling, stronger, I'm looking for this bar to, go from 37 down to, from 77 down to 70, not just hang around inside. Once you start seeing it inside, that is a sign that maybe this market is ignoring that selling is done, and get ready for another leg back up, which it does, right? And then you even get up in here. Again, you start going sideways. There's some decent selling coming up here into the highs: 498, 763, 354, 575, 625, and the market's just going sideways, right? It's not selling off. I mean, eventually it does start to come off a bit, but under strong selling, but it's just not enough to really push it back down towards the 50 area, right? It's just sort of hanging around the 88s, 90s, and then again works its way back up again, right? You see some more selling coming in here, but even though you got that selling, it's not really coming off, okay? And if you're watching here, right, this is the simple bar chart, and again, sort of follow up from the video that we made the other day. When you're making new highs, delta should be making new highs, right? I'm always wary if the market is making, if delta is making new highs, cumulative delta, but the market's not making highs. So this is what you expect to see. And then, when it gets a bit later in the day, what time is that? 3 o'clock. We start coming off a bit here again, but it's, we're above 3,900. You're seeing the negative deltas, 500, 700, 1,100, then just sort of goes sideways because we're going into the cash close already here, right? So, what does that portend for next week? Hard to say, honestly, hard to say. We're up here 39, basically 39.14. But we had that nice rally up, and it was a nice flow-driven market. Any pullbacks you got were, this was about as deep as you got from 3.25 down to 6.5, more or less. That was your only pullback, but then we based out and rallied back up. But on this move up, you weren't seeing, necessarily strong pullbacks on strong negative deltas. So anyway, guys, I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So thanks, everyone. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.